is working harder than ever before, longer hours than any other country in Europe. It's affecting our families, our health, and may even be damaging business.
It's a time bomb in our society, and we're going to pay the costs, ultimately.
Tonight, World in Action asks, does Britain work to live or live to work?
I have done like 60 hours this week.
It doesn't do you any good.
I'm 80 hours a week.
I don't like doing it basically, but we need the money.
20 years ago, we were promised a new way of working with more leisure time for all. But for most, the dream has not materialized. A survey carried out for tonight's World in Action reveals that almost 2/3 of Britain's workforce are working harder than 5 years ago, and that over 1/3 are working more hours than they want to. Tonight, World in Action asks, why is life all work and no play? Blackburn, Lancashire. Here, the heart of Britain's industrial base still beats. Nestling among the other factories on the Whiteburk Industrial Estate is a company like many others up and down the country. A company that's come through the recession and is starting to pump life back into the British economy. But for those who work at this typical company, that doesn't mean their lives have improved. As orders have increased, so have pressures on the workforce.
The company as a whole likes a supervisor to be in when the workers are working, and if that means doing overtime, then that's what I'll do.
Last week, Bob Eves worked 64 hours.
11-hour days all week, Saturday and Sunday. If I'm having to work at weekend, I go into work 5 o'clock sometimes in the morning, 5:30, and then work while 1 o'clock, come home, have a bit of dinner, and take my wife and son out to Blackpool, Cleveland, because they still want to have a social life, which is only right that they have one. You know, so that sometimes gets a struggle. I can find myself walking along the prom when really I just want to get my head down, you know, and have a sleep for a bit.
The deadline's getting terrifically tight, so I don't know if it's worth me, you and Steve just getting in.
I don't like filling my car up at 4:15 in the morning, but sometimes that's what I'm doing. I don't like getting the last plane in at night and landing at 11:30 or 12 o'clock at home. But these are the things that stretch the day in both directions.
In our nationwide survey, more than 1/3 said that they had no choice about doing overtime, and half don't get paid for it.
I often wonder about the workers, what reasons they are for doing it, because some of them actually work far longer hours, and they work, they get to weekend working, and we're doing 12-hour shifts, you know, and they're in 12-hour Saturday and 12-hour Sunday, and then they're working nights during the week as well, and that week in, week out, every week, you know. And I begin to wonder sometimes how they actually manage.
I remember my parents and the amount of time they had to spend together, relaxing, doing what they wanted to do. I recognised that the first opportunity I get to do what I want to do, it's 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night, and everywhere's shut and there's nowhere to go.
Production figures for last week was £321,000. The production total for 3 factories, which was yesterday, was 587.
Presspart production is relentless. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The company pours out products ranging from pen refills to car components. They find their way into every home in Britain. Kerry Cooper is an occupational psychologist who spent the last 20 years looking at the way we work in Britain.
You know, tell me something about your company. How many employees do you have, and you know, basically what are they doing?
Well, we have approximately 200 employees here on site.
I think this company manages its working practices and working hours very typically like any small, medium-sized business. We have fewer people. They're trying to do the jobs of 3 or 4 people. As a occupational psychologist, I'm trying to figure out what is a good solution in this, because you don't want to really work people 60, 80-hour weeks.
No. But unfortunately, as I've said before, we don't carry extra people. Therefore, the onus sometimes is on people to put in that extra effort, and that's what happens.
Steve Wilkinson's working day is extended by having to travel an hour to work.
My motivation for working hard, well, I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy juggling several balls at once, which is obviously what you've got to do in this type of position. From 7 AM Monday morning to 6 PM Friday night, I probably don't switch off. And whilst I don't take home a vast amount of work physically, I always take home a fair amount of work mentally. There are occasions when I'll go home and I'll be in a bit of a bad mood, and I'm by no means violent, but somewhat abrasive at times. We do suffer from pressure. I mean, now is a very pressure period at the moment. October for us is a crunch month. Of 12 months in a year, October is the month.
Steve's life is about to get more hectic. His wife is expecting another child.
Baby is due in 3 days' time, October the 2nd. October, as I said earlier, is a difficult month here. We're getting deep into budgeting season, and therefore, it's bad timing from that point of view. I'm 50 miles away from where the maternity hospital is, and that's going to be difficult getting down there.
Working long hours is a matter of necessity for many of the workforce. Back at the factory, the night shift is clocking on.
It's not like one big family, because you spend most of your working life here, really. Just usually go home to, you like working, that's what you do, work and sleep. You go home just to sleep and you're back again the morning after.
Last week, Pam worked over 60 hours, including the weekend.
There's a lot of hours. But I suppose I've got used to it now. I'm not on my own, there's a lot of other people that do it. It's keeping us a job. I suppose if we didn't do the hours, we might not have a job because we won't have the orders and that. We don't have time off and that, you don't know what's going to happen the day after. I've seen things in papers, they've gone to work and found out they're all made redundant within the space of an hour of going to work. So you don't know how lucky you are sometimes, really. My husband was made redundant and he was out of work for 2 years, so there was only my money that were coming in. It was over the limit to claim anything, so the uniforms had to be bought and the bills had to be paid, and we still had to eat.
But even though Pam's husband has now found a job, she still has to put in the hours.
It'd be nice if you didn't have to work all the time. Then I think I think our pay is better than some places. I mean, the way my husband works, he's only on £2 odd an hour, and that's terrible. I go home with a better wage than what he does. I think it's more degrading a man going home with a less wage than his wife.
In our survey, we asked why people work long hours. Over half said they needed to make ends meet. A staggering 58% said they worked long hours because they lived in fear of losing their job. And nearly half said that their employers take advantage of that fear.
The job insecurities, the work overload, the reduced numbers of people are forcing people to work long hours, to work harder, and incidentally, new technology, which was supposed to be our savior, has made it even worse, because that's speeded up work as well.
As the working day lengthens, there's less time for family and friends.
I can feel completely all right 1 minute, and then I can be talking with my wife, and the next minute, I'm not there, I'm just fell asleep.
When I see him just nodding off, and I look at him, and I can see the young lad of how he used to be, and how he's going up to 50 now. You know, I mean, I don't want to lose him because I know there's nobody will ever replace him for me. And I just look at him many a night and I think, hey, Bob, you know.
My mother and father were ill. And because I was working, I didn't really see enough of them. You know, and I finished up. We thought my father was going to die, but my mother died. And I just regret I didn't see her more often in them last months. And that's it really. That's my biggest regret recently.
I used to work nights and I'd be cranky, I'd work weekends, so you get tired, you don't treat your wife and your children as well as you should do. So obviously if you're tired, if you're out working 12-hour shifts, plus you've got an hour each way travelling maybe, you don't get a chance to see your family, so your home life suffers. It'd be nice to do an 8-hour day and go home every day and play with your wife and children, but you can't do in life, can you?
Graham is the union shop steward, but in Presspart, like many similar British manufacturing companies, the unions are no longer recognised.
Everybody understands that the company has production deadlines and that they wish to get production out. But the way to go about it is to negotiate with the workforce and not twist their arms up the back to tell them and force them to work, because that just causes animosity and people lose interest. I've worked here 11 years. I can't afford to go out in the outside world at the moment and look for another job. Maybe that's why some managements tend to play on that fact that the outside world isn't as secure as it used to, and jobs aren't as easy to keep, not as easy to come by, easy to keep as they were in the past. So maybe that's why people toe the line more. They want to stay because they feel as though they'll keep the job. It used to be a very happy place to work, laughing and joking, but now people come in, they're weary to start off with.
In our nationwide survey, we asked what effect the long hours people work have on their lives. 6 in 10 said that work left them exhausted at the end of the day, while over half said that they didn't have as much time for personal relationships as they would like. And a quarter said that work had a bad effect on their relationship with their partner or spouse. Long hours may take their toll on the family, but they also take their toll on individuals.
I work in a factory across the way, and I see him going off at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in the car park, and I look, and I think his car's still there at 4 o'clock, and I think, hey Bob, this isn't right, you know. But, you know, I just don't think it's right. You know, many times I feel like going across the road and saying, right Bob, come on, you've done enough. Oh, you know, but it'd kill me if I did that, but that's what I feel like doing, you know.
She's not very happy. She's not very happy. She thinks that certainly at our age that we are now, we should be taking things easier. And I hope that we would do when I was younger, and I hope that my children wouldn't have to work as hard. But now they are. I've got a daughter and a husband, and I was hoping that they'd be financially better off these days where they didn't have to. But that hasn't worked out.
If my Bob's in hospital in intensive care, well, what factory carries on? I mean, what do I say to my children and my grandchildren? You know. Well, I told you, what do I say to Bob when he's led there?
Saturday morning, and a shadow has fallen over the factory at Presspart.
Roughly 8 to half past, there were a sudden death on the premises. A long-time employee evidently just died and slumped on the floor. One of his fellow workers went round and found him. I've known him now for 22 years, and I've never had a falling out there with him, and I've never known anyone to fall out with a man. You know, he's a very gentle fella, and it certainly deeply affected the workforce. You know, very much so. In his time, he's worked nearly every shift at this factory. You know, and he will have done over the years. He's sure of the overtime load as well. You know, a nice man.
because I was only talking to him about an hour beforehand and having a bit of fun. So, you know, it's really shook us all up, really. I think you expect everybody to carry on and carry on. You don't expect anything like this happening. Especially his son and daughter work here as well, and they're good friends of it, you know, as well.
It's a subdued noise today. We have had to curtail production in certain areas, but at the end of the day, this has happened, but our customers will still want their parts, which they're freely entitled to want. That's what we're in business for, to keep them happy, and we will endeavour to carry on doing that. Because if they don't come to us, they will only go somewhere else, won't they, instead? Even in times of death, we still have to carry on. Sad really, but that's just where life is, isn't it now?
Hello, Brenda. Morning. Brenda, do you think you could do a notice, please, for the board? Re the death of Peter Ormerod on Friday. Well, I'd like it done as soon as possible because apparently there are people who aren't aware. Okay, something like, you know, it's with deep regret that we've got to announce the sudden death.
The tragic death of Peter Ormerod last Friday. The funeral service will be held at St Oswald's, Nusden at 10 a.m. and the funeral at Pleasanton at 10:45 on Thursday the 5th of October. A representation of 3 people from number 2 factory days will be allowed to attend. All other employees not working at the time are welcome to attend.
Body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Ensure uncertain hope.
You always think, like, how long have we all got left when something like that happens? But my lifestyle isn't a thing that I can do anything about.
Oh, hi, have you heard? It's a boy.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yes, Jack.
Jack.
Steve got through the experience fine. Okay? Yeah. Okay, pass it on. Okay,
I will.
Thanks.
You know safety glasses? Can we get parts for these?
If there's anyone who knows about the stress suffered by the workforce at Presspart, it's company nurse Janet Motley.
I tend to be closer to the shop floor staff and the management. Sometimes they come in just for a chat, just to sort of offload the problems to me, really, just to sort of say they're tired, they're having a hard time at home, they're having a hard time at work. I mean, some of the men put tremendous hours in. So they're at work a long, long time. They didn't work as many hours. They perhaps wouldn't have as many accidents.
Lots of people with colds and that, they don't have time off. It's not the case that, you know, it's the money as well. You won't be on, you're not on the same money when you're sick. So you've got to like work because you still have your bills to pay at the end of the day.
When I'm on the shop floor talking to people, you know, when they stood at the machine, they're working, and they might come up to me with all sorts of problems. They just can't afford to take the time off to go to the doctor. If they have a bad attendance record, you know, when redundancies come along, maybe they'll be top of the list. I mean, they all know. They all know.
In our survey, we asked what effect the hours people work are having on their health. Nearly 2/3 said they were more stressed by their work than 5 years ago. Almost half told us work made them depressed, and it made a quarter smoke and drink more. 43% said they had problems sleeping because of work.
It used to be the case that most of the stress-related illnesses were at the shop floor level, that is, heart disease and all those. Usually you find twice the incidence of heart disease on the shop floor than you will at the top floor. But I think you're going to see the figures changing. We're seeing more and more white-collar professional people, from teachers and social workers to the uniform services, all beginning to suffer.
Hello.
Hiya. Nice.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Steve Wilkinson, the company finance director, is now the proud father of a baby boy.
Hi, good morning to you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks
Everybody
very much.
okay?
Yes,
How's
fine.
Ben?
But the next day, work still calls, and he's back at his desk.
That's fine. You didn't faint or anything like that, did you?
When Bev comes out of the hospital as of the weekend, I was planning on having the week after off and being at home. The week after, as well as still being in October, happens to be the second week of the month, which is also when our monthly accounts are due. So I've got a major clash the week after, but would still like to have the time off, and really I need to be at home to help Bev.
How many hours a week do you work?
On average about between 65, 75 hours, up to 75 hours a week.
What's it do for your family, though? I mean, how does it affect you at home?
The situation at home is, most on this shift is quite unacceptable. But we accept the situation that we have to work these hours to make a living and to survive in the present climate.
The ultimate dilemma of any small, medium-sized company is this. How do we keep our labor costs down and yet humanely manage people so they don't want to leave, so that we keep them and we keep them happy? And that's very difficult without working long hours and overtime.
When you're having to change shifts all the time, you get very tired, a little bit irritable. I'm not an irritable sort, but you do. It does affect you when you're going out.
The bill last year in 1994 in the UK economy was £11 billion due to sickness absence alone, of which we'll say, let's be conservative and say a third of that is stress-related. But what are the costs of labor turnover, of premature death of people, of the national health system having to pay for damaged people that work is doing to them? And what is the cost to UK PLC of people turning up to work because they're frightened of not turning up to work, who are not adding any kind of value to the product or service, in fact maybe taking away for the product or service?
If there's a weekend on, then we maybe do 2 12-hour Saturday and Sunday. Occasionally.
Is it actually good for our business when Germany works the least amount of hours and is the most productive country in Europe, and where the Japanese, who have realized the impact of long working hours on their products and services, on their economy indeed, have cut back their working hours?
I mean, the personal cost really is quite significant, and all you seem to be doing is pushing it along year after year, year after year, and after a few years you realise your life is going by and you're achieving nothing on the personal side. It's a sad reflection, I think, on certainly my position and certainly that of my peers.
I think unless we seriously reflect on what is important in life and for our country as a whole, we will carry on going down the long working hours route. It's not good news. I don't think it's actually good. There's no business case for it for UK PLC. It's certainly no case for the individual or for the family. People want to work to live, not to live to work.
It affects the work, and it also affects the home life. You know, people, the wives at home, sometimes the marriages crumble.
If it's a good marriage, then you tend to make it work. If you want the money, you've got to find the hours to work on. And the kid is just revolved, around that.
It's all coming from the customer. It's not coming from yourself. It's coming from the demand placed on the business to achieve, achieve, achieve. You're in a competitive world, and if you don't do it, someone else will. And you've got a responsibility to your family and to the workforce. If you're going to compete, those are the rules of the game. Personally, I wish the conditions were a little bit different.
They want the work out, but it's my husband they're using, and it's my husband that's getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and coming home later than he should at night. I can appreciate their point of view, and I know Bob's at middle. But when all's said and done, it's my Bob that I'm looking at, and I want to keep him for as long as I can.
You shouldn't will your life away, and you should enjoy your families first. That's the most important bit. Work is important, but families always come first. That's what it should be. That's it.